Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Raybearer, chapters 30, 31, and 32. In these chapters, well, we have the death of the Emperor, we have the death of the lady, we have the reveal of the lady's perfidy, and a proposition that seems like it's pretty much impossible and or guaranteed to end in the death of Tarisai. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
All right, we are in the last leg of this book. I'm going to have to make a new chart for the next book and get that out to everybody so that they can get started. Redemptor. How do you feel about this section? We were talking before we went live about how much happens and how fast it moves.
So much happens. So much unexpected shit happens. I didn't see any of this coming the way it played out.
Yeah.
I could have imagined a setup in the story where it becomes Tarisai and Dio being like the two main, people of the next book. But in my mind, I never really thought about what that meant for the Emperor and the lady. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wasn't prepared for any of this, like any of it. Fucking, even while it was happening, I thought something different was happening. I was just like, well, that can't be right. Like they're not over the edge. And then he didn't just hit the fucking ground and Mbali is rescued, and I was like, okay. But then the thing with Wu and the knife, and I was like, oh well, she's protected. But then I had forgotten about the council can actually do it, and I just wasn't ready for any of it, and it was so goddamn fast.
Yeah, it's like very, very on top of each other.
Yeah, and it was like I was so annoyed too because that big scene happens right as she is realizing that the rays that she's been looking for are hidden in the drum, right?
Yes. Yep.
So they do that thing where she's about to call the ray and she gets interrupted by Kira. And I was really pissed because I understand that Kira is coming with really pressing news about what's happening with the lady, but like it takes 2 seconds to say a word.
Right.
And I got so mad about that. Like, why didn't she just fucking say it's one word? Just say it. And then, so in the midst of me feeling a way about that, all this other shit happens. And I'm just like, well, what the, I don't know if if she had said it and called the Ray, if that would have changed anything. I feel like it would have changed everything, the way everything else happens. But I don't know if that's 100% true. But yeah, again, I say for the record, I wasn't ready.
Yeah, I have to admit that, even though I have read this already and I know how things unfold, I was not remembering how on top of each other those things are. I had them more spaced out in my head. I think that I had also there was parts that I almost thought happened in the second book. Things so everything happening so quickly here, I was just like, wow, I really didn't have this clear in my mind, which makes sense because it is kind of muddled as it's happening.
All right. So you want to just start at the start, I guess?
Let's start at the start. We are wrapping up the, she has just left the scene of rebuking this whole edict and is sprinting out of there for her life, in a sense, it feels like, even though there's nothing he can actually do in the moment that isn't going to look really bad. So it's not like she's exactly in danger, but it feels like she's in danger.
They've sort of spirited her away back to the children's palace with the council, and she, like, very early in a chapter, she has a realization about the drum and, like, makes the connection and then just takes off running. And Jeet is behind her because, you know, it's not really safe for her. And he follows her. She gets back up into the tower where she had insisted that they sleep because she wanted to be so far away from everybody else. Opens the drum, and there are the two Raybearer masks, but these are in the shape of lionesses.
Yes.
Which I thought was like, okay, really nice. And then some papers. And it's just like, it's all like coming together for her. She realizes that, like, now this is the proof that she's been looking for. And she sees that the mask for the lady has her council members. It's not like the whole 12, but it's
right.
You know, and she can see, Tarisai can see her mask, and it's just got her one stripe, which is the immunity that she's born with, which is sort of being impervious to fire. And really, this is a big fucking deal.
Yeah,
this is like confirmation that it was always. She says there's always been 4. So there's an emperor and an empress and a prince and a princess, I guess.
Yep.
And that is how it was supposed to be. And then her and Jeet, you know, get a little, you know, they're
have
very happy.
Moment.
They celebrate a little bit, you know, and he tells her that, Jeet tells her that, like, because Tarisai's like, yeah, the thing with the ruling was, you know, just a moment. You know, Thaddeus is they're gonna figure it out, a loophole or something. They're gonna, you know, they're gonna undo it. They're gonna find a loophole, appeal it, whatever, say I got it wrong. And Jeet is like, it doesn't, that's the thing though. It's not just about what the ruling class is going to do, the council is going to do, because you have sort of sparked something with the people, you know, and the people aren't going to let what you've done be forgotten. You have made a connection with them, you know, everything from like the Imperial Guard, who still are grateful for how she helped Captain
Bunmi.
Yes, thank you. And all the people that were rioting or being kind of oppressed by the edict, you know, see what Tarisai did, and kind of, I mean, she's like low key like a freedom fighter.
A little bit, yeah.
You know? Yeah. And yeah, then they get to that moment where he is like, all right, you know, call it. And she just gets half a word out, and then I think it's Kira that comes, you know, bursting through the door. Yeah. Letting us know that the lady has been sentenced to death and that it's happening like now-ish. Yeah. And they just go running to the staircase to heaven where the prison is.
Yeah, this is the whole way that she does this. She has to steal the memories of all the guards who are supposed to not let her through, and then be like, what were your orders again? Which was a wild application of her power that had not occurred to me. That she could do it that quickly and get like an instant result sort of thing.
I don't think we've seen her use her Hallow in this way at all. It's always, well, we've seen her take memories from Jeet to give him peace and calm him. But I guess that's sort of the same thing, taking a memory from somebody, but the application here is very, very different. You know, this is,
this is doing it with a real agenda of your own, and not just for like the benefit of there's no consent involved.
Yeah. That's the thing too. Is that she always asks people if it's okay if she touched them and get their story. This is one of the first times we've seen her do it without consent, and to, like you said, do it to further her own agenda, and use it like a weapon.
Yes. You know?
Yeah. And so they get to the top of this roof, and
Yeah.
She's there. The Emperor's council, they're all up there. And he's going to have her murdered by a bunch of arrows.
This guy has not thought this through.
He has not.
At all.
Not at all.
It's remarkable that this woman has been an enemy of his out there creeping around the world for fucking decades. And he hasn't stopped to think through how he would handle her execution if she were caught. Because this is so like short-sighted.
Absolutely.
The whole way this is done. It's embarrassing.
I love the way Tarisai thinks to herself that her actions with her ruling has enraged him and caused him to act really foolishly. You know, he is acting on emotion.
Yeah.
You know, and he ends up trapping himself because this is what I think is interesting. He has denied the reality that the lady is also a Raybearer so fully and completely that he's like deluded.
Yes.
You know?
I agree.
And because common sense, he knows in his heart what the deal is, whether he chose to believe it or not. So, like, I think even Thaddeus at one point is like, we should have did this shit downstairs in a dungeon until we were sure exactly what she was vulnerable to.
Yeah.
Like, so he has this big public display, and they shoot all these arrows, and they all just fucking drop like the Matrix. Like the bullets come and then they just drop to the ground.
I don't know what I was expecting in terms of like being immune to this type of death, but it sure was not that kind of like, do you know what I mean? Like, what, did you have anything in mind?
I thought it would be more like what we've seen with Tarisai, which is that, you know, she gets sort of like when Tarisai is in the fire and everything, like it affects her, you know, a little bit, but it doesn't kill her. I can't remember if she burns at all. Or
I don't think she does, but I honestly don't remember either. Yeah.
So I just didn't expect it to be anything quite this dramatic.
Yes.
You know, I thought, well, maybe the arrows pierce, but they don't draw blood, you know,
right?
You know, or something. But this was just on some fucking force field shit, and I was like, all right, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
Yep.
And then this thing is so public. Fucking the Emperor is like, all right, well, we'll try poison next. And
that is again
has
to be like, dude, do you get how this looks now? Like
there's like a bunch of people watching. There's people downstairs. They're all watching.
It's like well, she doesn't have the ray. We just weirdly have to go through 12 different types of death to see what kills her for no particular other reason.
Right. I loved that. It's just like
God.
People will have question. Like fucking understatement. And yeah, so then for a second I was like, all right, so everybody's gonna just take a minute. We're all gonna take a breath. The public display, all that's gonna be like a done deal. You know, they're gonna like put her in chains and drag her downstairs and something. But that's not what happens at all, because he just says, fuck the arrows, poison.
Yes.
And this was very interesting. So the lady is like, okay, fine. I will take the poison. But I want like my last rites.
Yeah.
And we get this moment with Mbali that's very like touching. Mbali seems devastated, you know, that she's having to be here and do this, and really does seem like she thinks this is going to be the end of the lady, right? Like this is it. Yeah, this is her just giving up the ghost. She's going to just take her punishment and put this whole ordeal to an end.
Yeah,
and I was like, that's weird. That doesn't seem like her. So I was thinking, well, we had seen Tarisai tells us that there's a green stripe on her ray mask.
Right.
And so that meant that poison wasn't going to affect her.
Right.
So I'm thinking about that, and I'm looking at this, the lady's like, oh, I'll take the poison. And I'm like, all right, what is she planning? There's a plan, but what is she planning? I didn't know she was planning that. That wasn't what I thought was going to happen next.
Yeah.
And I don't, she takes Mbali hostage and, whips her over the edge. And it's basically like, somebody's going over. You decide who it's going to be. Yeah. And I was just like, God damn, lady.
She is scorched earth. I swear to God.
She really is. Mm-hmm. Every time I think that there is I don't know if softening is the right word, but every time I think that there's a softening, there's a sort of regret about the way things have gone, or maybe she deeply cares about certain people and more than her mission, her idea of her destiny, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all right, well, she wouldn't do that. But no, this is a woman who absolutely would do that. Yeah. Because she is on her path and does not have any doubts, it seems, really about the righteousness of her path. Mm-hmm. And does not mind the sacrifices of other people. Yeah, 100%. Doesn't see anything wrong with sacrificing other people to get to her end. And I get it, generations of women have been denied their rightful place, patriarchy and but even I was reading this
we were talking before we started about sound bites that could be isolated to make you look bad. And I'm just going to say that I feel like patriarchy could really go against you. So I'm going to ask everybody to please not soundbite that.
I don't see why. I feel that's how I feel about it, It's an angry girl sound. It's patriarchy.
It doesn't sound exactly sincere in that clip, is what I'm saying. But well, I get you.
That's a shame.
But anyway, continue. Despite all of that.
So I desperately want to be aligned with her choices here. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is just, I'm just not fucking hardcore enough because I'm like, this is too far.
Yeah.
And maybe now this is the sound bite to come back and bite me in the ass. Maybe I am just not enough of a misandrist. I thought I was. Guess I'm not.
I would call myself a misandrist until I read this book. And now I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. Maybe not all men.
Cause
feminists are taking things a little too far. Right?
And trust me, you guys, no one was as shocked as I was to realize where I had landed. Mbali was all right. I didn't want to see that. And all right. And luckily I was very glad.
Is all right.
She is all right. Wynn did show up and was able to catch her and save her. But the way it goes down, she has Mbali over the edge. She says to everybody, listen, brother. And I love that she's just calling him brother now.
Yeah.
In front of God and everybody. Mm-hmm. First of all, this is your fault. Because we could have all been a family.
Yep.
You did this, right? Which I'm like, he did, but also. But okay. Mm-hmm. You did this. And you had to make a choice.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt Mbali. Basically, she says if something happens to her, it's because you forced my hand. Mm-hmm. So she's not even taking responsibility for what she's really doing right now in this moment. Someone is going over the edge of this tower. Someone dropped or someone pushed. I don't want to hurt her, but the choice is yours. Ma'am.
Yeah. And finally, Tarisai looks up and is like, wait, she's not even looking at the Emperor.
Nope.
Oh, no. And she realizes exactly what the plan is here.
Yep. Because she had shared their secret, that is in Mbali's affair with her mother. And Tarisai feels so guilty because she's like, I did it for a laugh.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's so much more than that.
It is, but I gotta say, when I first read this, when we get to the scene of her telling her mother, I was screaming at her. What are you doing? That's a really big deal to be telling somebody who has every reason to use this against them. But I didn't think she'd do it this way. I thought she would try and like barter the information somehow or blackmail Mbali and Thaddeus into doing something for her to break her out. Like, something like along the lines that would be a lot more secret, not this kind of open. Yeah.
But because she is, as you described her as being scorched earth, and that's exactly what it is. There's no like half-assing any of it, everything is going to be big and going to be sort of final and, lines in the sand and all that kind of shit. She is not half-assing anything. So that's what she does. She basically knows that she's putting Thaddeus in a position to make a choice now. Who do you choose, your emperor or your lover? And
he chooses.
And when he does choose, something happens to him. I can't remember what his hallow is, but it says his hallow spiraled out of control. And because the energy was so strong, Tarisai actually is able to get his memories. And she's not even like fucking touching him.
Yep.
And she gets to see basically
his hallow is like heat control. Do you remember he can use his like this laser point heat to like engrave things on leather? And so it's this really weird specific thing.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry, I just wanted to.
No, thank you, because I couldn't remember. And she said, she says crackled as his heat precision hallow. So it told me what it was, but it just didn't make sense to me.
It sounds really weird. So yeah, picturing what it does, I get not really being like. Because he doesn't use it that often. It doesn't really come up all that much.
Yeah. I think maybe when we first met them, when she was a candidate, maybe they said something to us about it. And
I think the first time she gets her lesson from him when she becomes High Lady Judge and whatever they call it, apprentice or whatever. I think that he uses it in front of her to give her like lesson plan. And that's, I believe, maybe the only time we see him use it. So.
Well, he just fucking goes supernova here. She gets his whole story. He comes from very, very humble beginnings. Falls in love with Mbali pretty early on.
Yeah.
And also she sees Thaddeus giving Tarisai mercy. Taking care of her. Him growing fond of her, which I thought was really heartbreaking that that's included. It's not just that he tolerated her,
Yeah.
He actually, enjoyed her. And then before you fucking know it, he just pushes the Emperor right off the fucking ledge, y'all. It just fucking happens. Just boom, done.
That shit caught me so off guard. And I will tell you what, everybody, I completely forgot that, like, again, if this is done by a member of the council, it's because I was like, so he pushed him, so what?
Yeah.
He's going to be fine. And then I had to be like, oh my God, right, okay. It just took a minute for me to realize, so yeah.
I had the same thing. And there's the way it's written, it's that, he pushes him over the edge, and then everything goes silent, and there's a crack of a body meeting the sidewalk with a stone, but you don't know who.
Yeah, because the lady dropped Mbali. She, like, fumbled her.
And you're just like, well, what happened? And so, without even thinking deeply about it, I was like, it had to be her.
Right, exactly.
Because he's the Emperor, But then it is Wu-En coming up flying, and he is holding Mbali, and she is alive. And so then it's like, well, shit, the Emperor's gone. And I don't even, like, before I could register that, you know, Wu En grabs a knife and slashes the lady in the face.
Right. For what he thinks is just a dramatic gesture.
Yeah, he's just
trying to make a point.
Trying to make a point so that she is going to now be marked like he is, because he is still feeling the betrayal of her basically lying to him all these years about what she had planned. Well, he thinks that it's a lie. Tarisai later on has, you know, a different spin on it. I don't know how accurate it is.
I feel like
but yeah. And then I'm just so I'm watching that, and I'm just like, well, it's a little gash on her face. It's gonna be fine, because just that fast, I forgot again. I count a person
again. Yeah. Yep.
You know, like that fucking fast.
100%.
So now everybody dead. It's like I'm about to be fucking reading Song of Ice and Fire. Like, the fuck, you know? And I have absolutely...
Girl, my brain is so fucking annoying. Everybody dead now. Like, in my head. Why? Nobody wants that. I don't want it. My listeners don't want it, but I have to do it because it's in here and it has to come out here, or else it'll just stay and fester. I'm so sorry, everybody. Ugh. Anyway.
So
tiring.
I really don't know which of our brains is worse. They're like very, very different, but they're both
different,
equally obnoxious and exhausting.
Yeah.
Just in different ways.
I feel like your brain is more like a Werner Herzog movie where it's like bleak and really like thinking about things in a long, slow pan in black and white. And it's just somebody sitting by a window and looking out at the rain.
That all checks out.
My brain is like if you're flipping through TikTok but not letting anything finish. And it's just a series of like clips of music and jokes that start but don't end, or the ends of jokes that haven't started, and fucking cats running, and then somebody ranting about socialism, and then, you know, like, and it's just like one after another, like gunshots.
That sounds awful.
It's really tiring. This is why I have no choice but to do this job forever. There's no other options for a kid like me out there. It's not going to happen. It's too late for me. Save yourself.
Save yourselves. I saw a comment in the wild today. Somebody they were talking about kids today, right? And they were talking about Gen Z, I guess, as the younger kids. I don't even know what like fucking age group Gen Z is now.
They're the ones right after mine, because I'm a millennial.
Oh, I thought Gen Z was younger than that. But anyway, the comment said Gen Z are just no limit soldiers. You can't fuck with them, and I laughed so hard. I don't know why that
Good for them.
I really enjoyed it though.
Patrick in the chat says, wait, y'all moved on already, but Everybody Dead Now is still playing in my head. I think it's it for the whole day for me now, I think. I'm so sorry to do that to you, Patrick. I just, I guess my brand is let me spread the suffering around. As long as we're all experiencing it together, then it's not so overwhelming.
Every time something like this comes up, I know I have mentioned it on a podcast probably 8 billion times, but I cannot help myself. The trick to getting the thing that's in your head out of your head, according to Mark Twain, is you got to get it in somebody else's head.
I feel like that makes sense.
That's how it works. There's a whole short story he wrote about a ticket taker on a train, and you get the thing that's running in your head, and then you just say it to an unsuspecting stranger. Right?
It's like The Ring.
And then you're free. And the stranger has it stuck in their head. I read that shit in the 8th grade, and it stuck with me my whole life.
That's genius. What's the name of that story? I want to go read that.
I would have to Google it. The punch the ticket on the left-hand side, I think, is the thing that's the refrain. But
now you know what's in my head, right? You know what's in my head now.
What?
Punch the ticket to the left-hand side. Like, I can't. It's just God. The thing that has been in my head for the past like several days, but what's been sort of weird is that it's also in Owen's head. Have you watched The Mandalorian?
Not the new season. I haven't started yet. I've seen the other seasons.
Okay, so you know the theme song though.
Yeah.
It's like a banger theme, honestly. There's like this drums, and then you get like off in the background because it's like a Western, and we're just gonna add that little. And I've had it in my head constantly. And Owen has also had it in his head constantly. So we've had this weird thing where it's playing in our head while we're doing something, but then one of the other people in the room starts singing it to themselves. And it feels like it jumped out of your head and like manifested in the room with you. It's just a really weird sensation for us both to have. This doesn't happen often, but occasionally. The other one that what's that song that's always used in the scenes of the 70s and 60s in movies where it's like I'm not going to remember it, but it's like another banger, and we both had it in our head for I think a solid 2 weeks. Finally got it out, and then it started playing in a movie because it's like one of those needle dropped hits that is in everything. And yeah, it him and I, our brains work in a similar way. So I love Patrick and Miss T says that they sang it that same way for the punch the ticket on the left hand side. So I'm glad to not be alone in that.
I wish I knew what song you were talking about from the movie. I just texted you the short story. It's called Punch Brothers Punch.
Oh, that's very different.
But okay, all right. So book
indeed.
All right, so everybody is dead, and I don't know what's going to happen next. Ruin does not mean to kill the lady.
He sure doesn't. When it's made clear to him that the blade is poisoned, he looks like he's gonna throw up.
Yeah, it's and I don't know what happens next. Meaning, like, I'm reading this and I'm like, what the fuck? You know, what is the rest of the council going to say? What's Dio going to say? Oh my God, what's going to happen to Tarisai? But none of that matters because the guards start shooting.
Mm-hmm.
He grips Tarisai up. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know,
they have bounced, kids.
And it says, before I drifted from consciousness, the last thing I registered was the wind whipping in my ears. And basically she's hearing the news being passed that the emperor has gone to the village. He will not be back soon. Long live Imperial Majesty. And, you know. And so I was like, oh, well, they're just moving on then.
That was real quick that they all decided to start announcing this.
Just like that fucking fast. Mm-hmm. That fast. Like, it says, we ascended far, far away, but before she drifted from consciousness. So it seems like right the fuck away.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
Yeah.
And I am desperate to know what that looked like on the ground in real time. But it doesn't matter what I want to know. Because the next chapter starts and we are in Songland. And you can just forget about hearing about any of that other shit for right now.
This is like reading Am I the Asshole and not getting an update. Like, you can't have all this drama unfold and then you just leave and I don't get to see how it fucking goes with everybody. Like, I hate it.
Yeah. It was, so, yeah, she wakes up and they are,
oh my God, I remembered the song. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. It's the time of the season. Yeah. So now that's in everybody's heads, hopefully. Right?
Who is that?
Give it to the Zombies, I think. Give it to me easy.
That's a good song.
Yeah, Zombies.
That's a really good song.
It's so good. Like, that's part of what gets me so annoyed about it being in my head is like, I want to sing it out loud a lot, and then that just irritates everybody around me. So.
I saw a thing today talking about like vocal stemming, which I had never really heard of before, and like one of the little videos is like singing little songs to yourself. I do that. Oh, yeah. I don't sing like I can get a real song stuck in my head, but more often than not, I just make up a dumb song to go along with whatever task I'm doing at the moment that I find irritating.
I have heard you doing it.
Like,
when we're having technical difficulties. Why won't this work? I hate this fucking place. Motherfucker.
That's exactly the song. That is exactly the song. Oh, shit.
Anyway, sorry, everybody. We're way off.
We are.
Patrick sounds like a banger, honestly. So we're in Songland.
Yeah, she wakes up and she's been out for a couple of hours. Wu-In has whisked them to Songland, but they are not like, they're kind of like right on the border.
Yeah.
And we get some more backstory because eventually Wu-In lets Tarisai get his story.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah. And we've learned some pretty cool things too about Songland. It is enchanted. Mm-hmm. And when outsiders are trying to come into this area, it creates like bad weather if they haven't been like given permission to show up, if they haven't been invited or escorted by an approved person.
Exactly.
So when he tells her, he says something like, you know, we might have to stop for the night thanks to your storm. And she's like, my storm?
Yeah.
And so that was just a really neat little piece of world building there. That's very, very fun. I like that a lot. Yeah,
I really like, and the idea that her own person managed to just sidestep it because they just flew right over it. I wonder how many times Inoba had been like trying to find a way around it. We find out that he attempted some things a few times.
Yeah.
And he just kept getting pushed back. Reminded me of Napoleon a little bit. You know, he was not prepared for those Russian winters. That shit didn't go well for him.
That's actually a very, very good comparison. So yeah, we finally get to see Songland, which we've heard so much about throughout this story because that's been the sort of undercurrent, you know, with the motivation for Wu-In and the lady supposedly, and that you know, we know that Tarisai had learned about it and didn't think it was fair, but wasn't, you know what I mean? So getting to be here finally, and we are in this like refuge is where they end up, where all of these Redemptor children kind of there's a mixture. There's some that just get dropped off as babies because the parents don't even want to bother trying to get attached or raise their children, only for them to be you know sacrificed at 10 years old. Then there are ones that because we run into Yi-Un.
Yeon, I think.
We see her again, and she is another one who had actually survived the underworld.
Yeah.
You know, so she is in this place helping to care for these other children, and it's just deeply, deeply sad.
Yeah, she is. I was expecting her to be a little bit less harsh.
Oh, she
is pissed, and I'm not mad at her for that, but it was just more angry than I expected.
Yeah, she is definitely holding some deep resentment.
Yeah,
she fires off a line later on, something about like waiting for people with capes, and Tarisai's like, God damn, that was pointed.
Yep. Yeah, she's just throwing shade is not an adequate word. Flat out shadows. She's throwing darkness.
She's
throwing black holes.
So Tarisai also, we should mention, is suffering from council sickness because she is way, way far away from everyone else.
Yeah.
So she is in bad shape. She's also been wounded. They've both been wounded pretty severely.
Yeah.
And there's mention of how they're able to travel. I think Wen explains that like the jet stream or something, because there's the altitude, you know, they're not bleeding out, but once they come down, it's going to be a situation.
Yeah. Yeah, as they're coming down, he's like, I'm sorry about that, the pain. And she's like, the what? And he's like, you'll see.
You'll see. And when she finally sort of recovers, Tarisai thinks about what she left behind and just has a meltdown thinking about Dio, and just, you know, he's going to believe I abandoned him again. He's not going to understand. I didn't get a chance to explain anything to him. And the reality that her mother is now dead, it's just a fucking lot.
Yeah, she says something about like when the lady dies, or if she dies, and he doesn't say anything, and she's like, she's dead already, isn't she? Yeah. And he can tell because the ray went away as they were flying off.
Yeah.
Which that's a particular side effect that hadn't occurred to me, but yeah, I guess if there's nobody holding that ray together, then But wouldn't it be weird, like all of these people that have had access to your head suddenly can't anymore?
That's what I was wondering about. What happens to the Emperor's council now that he's dead? Like what happens? Where do they go? Know. What do they do? I mean, is there like an old folks council home? You know how in Game of Thrones, where the
Vice Dothrak?
Yeah, is there like a place like that for them?
That's a really good question. I don't know.
You know, I mean, I like to imagine after the Emperor is gone, they're released from their council duties, so maybe they can just, you know, maybe Mbali and Thaddeus can go somewhere and have a life together. But also, your entire life since you were 10 or 12 has been this one thing.
Yeah.
You know, centered around this one particular person, and then all of the privilege that comes with all of that. Like, how do you just, you know, step into a regular fucking life? You know, I'm really curious if any of that will be addressed. There doesn't seem to be much time left to address it in this book, but maybe in the next one we'll see. So let's see. Wen is she's not here for any of this.
Nah,
she really isn't. She keeps calling Wu in the traitor prince, and it's just like, he's not really a traitor. I know he's not really a traitor.
Yeah, she's just like, look, that's what everybody calls him. I'm just doing what it's calling him by what everyone's gonna recognize is basically it.
Yeah, and then we is this when she finally does gets the memories from him and gets to finally get an idea?
I think that might come a little bit later. I'm trying to find the spot here because I'm still in the part where she has just woken up and Yeon is like, you're already infected, aren't you? Because her injury could potentially lead to infection. And she doesn't understand that it's council sickness that's happening for her. So she's not even like, oh no, maybe you're infected. She's got a real attitude of like, oh my God. Now I have to deal with this. Like,
I have to go all the way to the fucking store and get garlic for your fucking bullshit infection. Like, you are nothing but a problem and a headache.
Exactly. And I don't know. I love her for this attitude that she has. She is just really not even attempting to like hide her contempt at all.
When Tarisai explains that it's council sickness, she goes, well, you should have brought a friend.
I forgot she says that. She's like, oh, you came on your little field trip all by yourself. Where's your classmate? I guess that's on you.
Right? She's like, when the Trader Prince travels, he always brings Kathleen or somebody.
This is what makes Tarisai finally go, all right, you know what, you little brat? I got yanked up into the air and flown away, not of my own volition, so just keep your fucking comments to yourself.
And she says, I wasn't allowed to bring a sibling, and I'm his prisoner, and the lady is dead. And then Ewan is just like, well, if you're a prisoner, we all are. Like, she's not giving her anything at all.
No sympathy. Zero.
Not even a little bit. So yeah, Ewan is the one who tells us a little bit of Wuen's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot, but she does mention that that after he promised his soul to the lady, the crown princess disowned Wuen.
Yeah.
And this is when she says, I don't care if he's a traitor, he's good to us. I thought, and she says that when she escaped the underworld, she thought that she was going to just go back home to her parents. And she realized that they didn't. And that no one really wants these Redemptor babies back.
This never occurred to me, and this killed me.
Yeah, this was, I guess I thought too, like I should have known from Wuen's just existence and how he was moving through the book, thus far. But I really did think that if you had a child that you were forced to sacrifice and they survived, like, why wouldn't that be the homecoming of the century?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But the idea, there's two things that happened in the book I thought were really well done. One is the idea that the children are cursed.
Yep.
Right? But then even better than cursed is the line that Wuen says later when he's talking about his own mother. That his mother had grieved so fully for her dead child, her dead son, and was so like, that had become such part of her identity that when her son came back alive, she had like no real use for it.
Yeah.
It's like that, she had just incorporated the dead son into herself to the extent that it wasn't going to change. She couldn't adapt. It was really, really, I thought, devastating, but in a way, it's an extreme because this is like a fantasy book, but like, it's not that far-fetched.
No.
People get ideas about who their children are. And I mean, you see it along all kinds of lines, whether you want to get in sexuality or gender expression or like who people choose for their life partners, like all that shit, as an adult, you get an idea in your head of what your kid is and how they fit into your life and how that all looks. And then sometimes they don't adjust, like they can't, they can't adapt. And it's just really, really sad. Like she has this woman, this queen has a son alive, just survived. And she would rather continue to grieve over a dead son,
You know what this made me think of was the character that is played by of course now I had her name like a second earlier and now it's gone. But in The Leftovers, who lost her whole family.
Nora.
And like the concept of what would happen if they actually came back, and because she had made so much of her identity after the event about how she was the one who had lost the most family out of anybody. And she goes to some like conference where there's another person who's lost, instead of 4, they lost 6 or something. And she's like really,
she meets the guy at the bar and he claims to have lost even more than she's lost. And he calls him a liar.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you could be living a life now as a full life, enjoying any fucking thing if you had really lost what you said you lost. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's also an aspect, and this doesn't really get brought up, but I wonder about it. how much of it is also just the constant reminder of the fact that you sacrificed this kid willingly, and now they have to like be here and stand and look at you in the face. And I feel like you just, you throw him through a breach and walk away and you don't think about him again. Fine. That's already bad enough to live with.
And you're also, you get to be the victim too, because they're gone and they don't exist anymore. They're off the page. Yep. But you're living and breathing and grieving. So now you get to be the victim for the rest of your life. Like Nora, basically, you get to carry around that.
Exactly.
Oh, what I lost. Like, look at me carrying this great thing I lost. And then someone shows up and it's like, oh, wait, you didn't lose me. Well, but I, not that I liked it, but I kind of liked, walking around and having people tell me how brave I was and not understand, oh, you're so brave to go on after such tremendous loss, and
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an awful, the whole thing with him is just so rough, man, because it's so much like thinking that that he's going to be wanted for certain reasons and then he's just not. And it happens like over and over
again. When we see him, when we finally do get to the part where we get to see his story as a child and how he meets the lady and all that, and how quick he was to be devoted to her, that all she really had to do was hint that maybe she could make things different.
Yeah. Yep.
And the reason I think that he ends up letting Tarisai get his story is he says something like, talking about the lady, and I think he says something like, well, she didn't really necessarily want me to be in her council.
Yeah, this happens after she talks to Am, or the memory of Am.
Oh, okay.
So, because it comes up because of the blood thing that is revealed in that scene. So just to sort of jump ahead a little bit, he's bringing her to this cave, and she's getting kind of frustrated because he doesn't want to tell her why he's bringing her here, and he keeps saying like cryptic shit and talking about how she should take her shoes off as a mark of respect, and she's like, dude, I don't know what the fuck is happening, you've got to give me something here. And finally she gets him to say her name, and he says, I need to know what's in there, lady's daughter. And she says, you've never said my name before. Do you know that? She's part of me, Wooin, but we aren't the same person. And we never will be. And then he says, please, Tarisai. And they go in together. And it's a really cool sounding, translucent bolts of blue rock glowed from within the tunnel walls. Yeah. And we moved as with a current, energy coursing in one direction as we climbed down, down, down.
Yeah.
And
he tells us that he's taking her to the same cave that he took the lady like 15 or 16 years ago. And that she came looking for the cave, and that there's something in there on the wall that he can't read. Which I was confused because I thought it was said that well, it comes up later that it's only certain bloodlines that can understand it. The Kunleos. The Kunleos are one of the family bloodlines that can read them, and I thought his family, like the royal family of Songland, could read it too, but I guess that's not the case. But anyway, so yeah, that's what he's taking her down there for, because when the lady read it all those years ago, she didn't tell him what it said.
Right. Yeah, she was real cagey.
Yeah, she was.
So I'm just going to read this. Several thousand moons ago, a brother and sister, both warriors, watched their homeland being torn to pieces. Monsters rose from the deep, and contagions spread their fingers, and island turned on island. Enoba was brave, but Wuorola was wise. She saw how division weakened humans against the Abiko. When she told Enoba, he enslaved an Alagbato, demanding the power to unite 12 realms. For Enoba's first wish, he asked the Alagbato to grow land across the oceans, uniting the islands so they could be ruled as one. And then he asks for the power to rule for eternity, and he steals 2 rays from the sun and creates the ray, and yada yada yada. And this take this ray, give the other to your sister and equal, for no being was made to rule alone. But Inoba, seeing the nations his spear had won, said, I have no equal, and devoured both rays himself. His ray caused him to outlive Wuraola, and though he mourned her, his pride scrubbed her story from the earth. Under the treaty, monsters from the underworld disappeared from the continent. Redemptor children were born in every realm, but after years of parents wailing in the streets, weeping as their children were taken from them, the Arit people began to resent their emperor. For Inoba had made the Abiku promise that Oluwani children would never be born as redemptors. He feared a rebellion, so hoping to mollify his subjects, he made a last wish that only children from Songland and never Aritsar would be selected as redemptors. Reluctantly, the Eru bestowed a new power on Inoba's ray, the ability to make a sacred council and unite 11 souls to his own. The treaty was sealed by 1 drop from every ruler. So long as the blood was equal, no realm drew the short straw. The Redemptor curse favored no realm. All sacrificed equally. But now that Inoba had united 11 souls to his own, his blood held the power of 12 realms. He had added, so to speak, longer straws to the game. When the continent gathered again to renew the treaty, Inoba's blood supplemented the power of the 12 Arit rulers, stacking the odds against Songland. Ever after, no redemptors were born in Aritsar. I'll be honest, I have a little trouble following this.
Yeah. So one of the first things that jumps out from this story is that the beginning of the story shows how Inoba was able to capture and enslave Melu.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same Melu that we've been meeting throughout the book. That's Tarisai's sort of, I guess, father.
Yeah.
Right? So we learned that the lady came to this cave, heard this story. Also mentioned that the thing telling the story is Am, or a memory of Am. So she's like, Tarisai is talking to God.
Yeah, basically.
But yeah, so the lady hears the story, and that's where she gets the idea and the knowledge to then go and subjugate Melu herself for her own gains.
Which is really such a fucking conclusion to come to. Like this horrible story about this man who's abusing power and like, you know, all of the things. And she's just like, ooh, I could do that too.
Yeah. I guess she just figured I have to fight him. I'm sure in her mind, it was like, I have to fight him with the same tools, you know.
She's leaning in.
Is she a girl boss? Was that what's happening?
Oh shit.
But yeah, so this idea that Inoba has done, like, this story paints Inoba in such a different light than the one that we have been told, which is, I feel like, is not surprising, like, at all. But yeah, that he gets these 3 wishes, and they are all about how to amass power.
Mm-hmm.
And then how to make sure he doesn't have to share that power with anybody he doesn't, decide is worthy. The fact that he has this sister, because Inoba when Tarisai first goes into the cave, she gets this, and its whole like trip starts for her. It says "Welcome Heir" of Wuraola.
Raola. There you go.
Wuraola. Okay.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It is really tricky.
And it's all in like a fancy font too, which is not helping.
I have the Kindle version, so I'm not getting that part. But
so we get immediately that, like, if we didn't know, if we were slow, they're like, no, Tarisai is that girl. Mm-hmm. Like, I just want you all to understand who we're dealing with here.
Yep.
And then to see Inoba basically just man it all up. You know? You know how they do.
I love the idea that we're turning man up into like instead of like get your shit together and step up, it's you really manned that up, didn't you?
Because this is
official change now. Somebody sign into the fucking Urban Dictionary and make sure this is updated.
Because this is his sister, you know, and
yes.
he is supposed to rule with her. It says that he, you know, I don't know what's the strength, but she was like the wisdom, and they're supposed to be a team. And it says a couple of times that he, you know, was fond of his sister and mourned her when she died, but not enough to share any power with her whatsoever. And then she dies, and he just wipes her from the history books.
Yep.
Which reminded me of like, remember we read a Magica, and you get to the end, and it's just like all these fucking women that have just been wiped from the history.
Yep. Magica, guys, that was a long ass podcast we did.
Oh my God, that book is like 12,000 pages long.
Is that the last book club episode I ever did? I think it might be. It was definitely toward the end.
It was definitely towards the end. I think you may have had one or two with the overdue guys after that, but
true, yeah.
But that was me and Candace, because we just wanted you to read it so bad.
Guys, I'm not kidding. That shit's like 3.5 hours or something. Like we went way over time.
That book is so long.
It was.
The last copy I had was held together with duct tape.
And it's just such a weird plot. You can't just like do beats, like major beats, because everything sounds fucking insane out of context. So it's like, if I don't explain this, it's gonna. I just. Yeah. You know, yeah.
It's still one of my favorites, though.
It's a really fun book. It's just weird.
It is. It is so weird. He's such a weirdo.
He is a weirdo. Anyway.
So yeah. So this is, and then yeah. So
the thing with the blood.
Everybody blood except people from Songland.
Right.
They're not included, and so because their blood isn't part of the shield, they are the odd man out.
Okay, that's easy. That felt a lot simpler than the way she explained it. Okay,
so
gotcha.
This is why later on Tarisai is like, well, the lady's blood is mixed with yours, Ruin. So when she was going to go to the shield or to the treaty ceremony or treaty renewal, I guess, and they do the ritual where they all like, you know, slice their hand and pour their own blood into whatever for the ritual.
Right.
Maybe because she had some of Wuen's blood in her blood, that was going to change how the treaty worked and maybe basically make the treaty fail so that Songland would be included in the sort of protected areas. And then once that happens, it's like there's no more just one place sacrificing the Redemptors. That's what Tarisai tries to spin. I don't know. Like, you said earlier you don't buy it.
I absolutely do not buy it.
And Wuen doesn't buy it either. And he says she never meant to anoint me at all. And when she did, she tried to take it back from me a couple of times.
And we find out that she's like thinking about how to even it out using Isokan-born anointees, even though they don't actually know how that blood works. When it's like, you know, from mixed realms. So it could be that wouldn't even have done what she wanted. But that was still her goal, was to keep Songland being the one sacrificing.
Yeah. And that, what was her line too? Like, I'll continue to sacrifice for peace or something like that.
I'll pay the price of peace.
As my ancestors have before me. Which sounds like I'm going to do the shit that we've always done.
Yep.
But I don't know why, after I just saw her wild out on that fucking roof, I'm over here like, maybe she had another plan, though.
You're a real Tarisai, you know that?
Yeah. I got some issues with holding mothers. So this is when finally she asks if it's okay if she can see his memories, and she basically sees him coming out of the underworld, there's a moment with him and his I'm going to say his familiar, his weird cat-like thing that joined him in the underworld that now is his pet. Pet seems way dismissive.
It's very
it's so much more.
disrespectful.
It's so much more than a pet. It's clearly like a sentient, maybe magical being. Also, I want to mention that she does ask the little girl what hers is, and hers is a phoenix.
Nice.
And I love everything about that.
I always talk about how mine would, if it were an animal, would be a raccoon, but I just don't see that being something that Underworld distributes. So I'm gonna have to come up with something a little bit more noble, I guess.
Do you think? But you don't think raccoons are in the underworld? You think it's too basic?
No, I think that the underworld, like, she's got a phoenix and he got this like giant tiger, and it sounds like they pick like animals for this job that they do, the ones that are like, you know, high impact in some way. And I just don't really see a raccoon. Also, you know, they're not a.
What if it was a giant raccoon? Because he's riding, because he can ride, because his thing carries him in Tarisai to the cave.
Patrick says hippo sounds Underworld approved. Yeah, I could see a hippo, especially because like they're actually native to Africa, and that is like the theme with a lot of the book, and like, you know, choosing something that is not a native species to like the United States, for instance, which I know that there are raccoons in other countries of different types, but when I say raccoon, you know the kind of raccoon I mean. But yeah, I just I feel like that isn't quite the energy. But yeah, this whole thing with him like coming back and being rejected, people calling him names, and they try and like force his pet out as well. And they'll like make a sign to throw off the evil eye when he passes them in the halls and stuff.
Yeah.
And finally he's like, all right, you know what? Fuck this. And he just bails.
Yeah, he just leaves. His mom is just like, because it says at one point after he's just discussing just how poorly he's being treated by literally everyone, he says the only mother could put a stop to the bullying, and she did nothing but cry. You smell of death, my baby boy, my poor dead baby, while he's standing right in front of her. So eventually he's just like, yeah, fuck all of this. And he rides off to this place, Sagmansan, which is where he had taken Tarisai in the first place. And then he bumps into the lady, which he describes as being an angel who nursed him back to health because he was just out there in the snow.
Yeah, he was kind of on his way to die. It was the vibe you get.
Yeah, his food had run out, and he was just gonna fucking freeze and starve in the snow. And the lady finds him because she's looking for him. Yeah. And really, her whole game is, I need to get into this cave. I heard there was a cave with some shit on the wall I need to see. And I know that only the royal family knows where it is. And I know that you're a part of the royal family and you've been basically disowned and thrown out here. So you're hella vulnerable. So this is perfect for me and my agenda. Yeah. You know? And
he says at one point, like, well, I'm not allowed. And she says who? The people who fucking have ruined your life. And that's a powerful argument.
And she says to him, because he says, I'm only allowed to tell family. And then she's like, you know what, those assholes? And then she says, and you know what? I can be your family. Which, he's a 10-year-old who's been through a horror, who's then been disowned by his family. And this beautiful, powerful woman saves his life and then looks at him and says, I could be your family. What is he gonna do?
She's so shady.
Yeah.
She just.
Yeah. And she fills his head with stories of the council and how special it is to be connected, and that she could anoint him. And then they would be family, and no one could ever separate them. And that also he would become a liberator of the Redemptors. So she's just You know, it says, it's really like, there's nothing for me to say because the very next line is, I led her to the cave the very next day.
Yeah.
Like, her hard sell was so effective, and he just had no defense for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that he takes her right there, the first light. He's taking her to the fucking cave, and she goes in and does not share with him what she learns.
No.
But all of a sudden, she's just like, well, you know, council life is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You sure you want to be connected with me like forever, ever? You know?
And, you know, we could just be like really super friends. And that's like basically as good as being a council member. It's the same.
And meanwhile,
we got council members at home.
Right,
council members at home. Crying boys.
And she's still also talking a lot about how I need to talk to the queen because I need her army. So, like, if you could help with that, that'd be super cool. You know, it's really, like, clear that she is taking advantage of him in multiple ways.
Yeah.
She wants that message from the cave. She wants an audience with the queen to try to convince her to, you know, give her an army so that she can then, I guess, attack the emperor, you know, and try to get her throne back that way or whatever. It's just like, it's just fucking, what is the word?
Predatory?
Predatory. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how she knew that the cave was here. Like, you know, it makes sense that she would have been able to find out, but I am curious exactly where she got the info. I don't know if it's mentioned, but I missed it if it was.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it's like a wish situation. Like, did she get it? Well, no, because she hadn't met Melo yet. She doesn't do Melo until she goes to the cave. So yeah, no, I don't know how she found out about it.
Yeah.
I mean, she clearly is a woman of great resource and persistence, and quite beautiful and strong and powerful. I imagine she moves to the world and a lot of people don't say no to her. You know what I mean?
This is what I mean when I'm like, I accept that she would have been able to find out.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, where the info came from.
Yeah. It does not feel like she gets told no a lot, except for from her brother. And she tells Wu In that, actually, no, this is even better because she doesn't actually say it to him. She says it out loud. Because she's in the middle of being like, you know, you could just be my friend. And then he's just like, oh, you don't really want me. You're just like my mother. And then she grasps him and she's like, I am nothing like your mother. And then she says out loud, I would never disown a child out of fear. I'm not like father or Olubade. I'm better. I'm different. She's like saying that out loud to sort of like remind herself, you know, who she thinks she is or who she wants to be.
Yeah.
And
just saying it doesn't make it so.
Wu-In says, well, then anoint me. And she's like, I can't. You have to love me first. And then he's just like, yeah, all right, I do. And
I do like that moment.
It's so great. And she laughs too, because she's just like, fuck, you really do love me, don't you? You mean that shit. Because you're a fucking child and you guys, she says love is so uncomplicated at your age is what she says about it, which is, I know what is meant here. I would disagree, but I understand what is meant when it's said in this way. You know, love is so uncomplicated at your age. Yeah. And she anoints him and
immediately starts trying to figure out how she can make it moot.
Yep. So, yeah, you guys. The soaking blood would balance it. Several strains from different realms. It's a risk, but it could work. There's still room on my council. I need only find the right ones. Yes, it's worth a try. This is her again, just sort of murmuring out loud, I think, to herself.
And Wooin doesn't understand the significance of this. You know, it's not until he finds out this info from Tarisai that he's like, oh, okay, now I get what was going on there. And Tarisai, for her part, is just like, I can't imagine anointing people just based on where they're from and like selecting them like they're breeds of cattle or something.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, it's a pretty cold-blooded approach.
Yeah.
It's very much not about the person. She's trying to... This is what happens when diversity becomes the agenda.
Oh my God. When the Raybearers go woke, this is what happens.
Oh, it's too PC these days. So when they figure this out, she is like, well, what I can do is stop Dio from signing the thing.
Yeah, because she has a part of her deal in the cave is like it's 99% history.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ends with a little bit of like fortune telling, a little bit of premonition. And it shows Dio at the treaty renewal just about to, you know, start the whole thing where they all like slice and put the blood in, which begs a question. Tarisai would need to be there for this ritual. If she's not there, how can they complete it? Or has she been replaced? Or is this premonition, is she there already back at the palace?
I actually don't know. I'm wondering if like it could be, well, no, the blood has to come from a council member. It can't just be anybody from Swana, right?
Right, but what I mean is like, because I don't understand how exactly this works, if Tarisai is like convicted in absentia, right, of being a part of murder, is there another person in the wings that could then be anointed from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the ritual has to have all of the council members there. And where is it? She's a premonition. I felt blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to see. I saw Deo in Emperor's Regalia, surrounded by semicircle of rulers. I heard her screaming parents. Yeah, it's not really clear whether or not in this vision of the future, if she is back there with them.
Yeah. I wonder if, probably, I'm thinking about Mbali, you know, because she is of Swana and she was anointed.
But she's not one of his council.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Or if it's supposed to be that she doesn't need to be there because the blood is in him now. Like the fact that they are bound, but because of the anointing means that he doesn't need her literal blood. His blood represents
all of the 12.
So I think that's what it is that she doesn't need to be there because...
So just the Emperor needs to do it because he has all.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. All right. But yeah, the way her whole vision quest ends is her seeing that and screaming, you know, I need to stop him from doing that. Which I don't even know. Like, I imagine that's the next book is trying to keep this whole fucking sacrifice of Songland from being okay with everybody. You know, and it really just, you know, I mean, when you think about how, I mean, this is, again, it's extreme because it's fiction and it's fantasy, but how much we are willing to sacrifice other people in the interest of our own, like, comfort or prosperity or privilege or peace or whatever, you know? Whether you're thinking about, like, I try not to think about the child labor that goes into, like,
my iPhone.
You know, like, you know.
Yeah, there was an article recently about how, like, chocolate companies have basically admitted that they use slave labor and are like, well, if we didn't, we probably wouldn't have chocolate. And somebody, like, retweeted it and was like, hey, maybe if it requires slave labor,
maybe
we just shouldn't have chocolate. And it was just such a simple thing to say, but honestly, it is like, imagine if we just suddenly were like, no more chocolate. And it's like such a nothing thing in the grand scheme. But people would lose their minds over it. you know?
And you know what the thing too is, I push back on the idea that we can't have chocolate without
100%. That is a line.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? That's absolute bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
this is like people who were like, well, we can't raise the minimum wage because then burger prices would go through the roof.
I'm not going to pay $30 for a hamburger, but you'll pay $9 for a fucking dozen eggs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, like see how quickly that shit happened.
Yep. You'll pay $2,400 for an apartment that used to be $800 6 years ago. Girl. Sure.
when I saw that post, because one of our old listener posted that first, and I commented on hers, and then I reposted it on mine, and went and like Google rent real quick, just on a humbug, like, oh, you know, blah blah blah. It's my old, like, closest I could remember to my old address.
Yeah,
I was like on the block, but not the exact like, you know, building, but I was on the block. 1 bedroom, shitty, not really renovated apartment in South Philadelphia, in like what used to be like okay neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I was paying, I think me and Steve paid like $585 or something. That shit is like $1,800 now. Jesus.
Mm-hmm. And how much time passed?
A little over 20 years, like 25 years.
That's insane.
Yep. But like nothing else is going up in 25 years. I mean, the fucking minimum wage is still what it is. You know what I mean? Like I was doing, because of like my stuff going on with work and everything. And Philadelphia is a weird city in that it is the poorest of the large cities in America. It's one of the poorest, larger cities.
Yeah.
So our cost of living is less expensive than like places like New York or DC, you know, like rent's not as high as it is in those places. But what you make here, unless you're in a very specialized field and you're very lucky, you don't get paid shit here. Yeah. You know, like when I was doing like my job due diligence and shit, like it's really, really low. Like I put in what I do for a living and I put it in other places, and what I would make is so much more than what they pay here. It's just
it's a mess.
It's a real, real mess.
I'm looking at the apartment that I used to live in now, and there's pictures, and I would swear this was the exact apartment I lived in, and I'm sure it's not.
In Connecticut?
Yeah, because I lived at 22 Evergreen Avenue in Hartford.
You still remember it? Mm-hmm. I cannot remember my old address to save my life. I have the block, but I can't remember the house number.
Yeah, it's saying that the lowest rent for a 1-bedroom in the area is $925. I was paying about $600 for my little 1-bedroom, and there's no listing here for this particular one. It's like pictures, but it's not giving a price. You have to like contact them.
Is that New Haven?
No, Hartford.
That's weird.
So
Hartford is more like a city as far as Connecticut goes, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Is that
It's got a much more like city feel than New Haven. New Haven feels like a college town, and Hartford feels like...
Is Hartford a capital?
Yeah. And it's also like the insurance capital of the country or something.
I knew that.
Yeah.
That I knew. And everything I know about Hartford comes from that TV show, Judge and Amy.
Oh, is it set there? I never knew anything was set in Hartford. It's not a great city. It's very ugly.
It's so funny, too, because they were like... She was a judge in a juvenile judge, child court. And her mother was played by... It was Amy Brennan. She was in The Leftovers. The one that married Regina Hall's husband. Regina King's husband. What was her name? Lori. She was Kevin's ex-wife that joined the Guilty Remnant.
And then stopped talking.
Yeah. So then...
and became a weird therapist.
Yeah. So it's her. She played the judge, and her mom was played by Tyne Daly. You remember her from
No,
Cagney and Lacey? I love Tyne Daly so
I never
much.
saw that in my life.
Oh my God, you're missing out. Cagney and Lacey, what? Two broads. They were detectives in like the early 80s. They was out there solving crimes and kicking ass.
Two broads.
Two broads. Tough girls.
I've got a dame.
Cagney and Lacey was my shit when I was a little girl.
All right. Anyway. Okay. So getting back to the story, the whole thing with the like options here is that if she wants to get back in time to stop this ritual from taking place, she has to travel through something like 26 different lodestones. And there is like absolutely no way that's happening without her dying.
Hang on for a second, ma'am.
Okay. Did you not read 33?
No, next week is 33. 33 and 34.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm right.
You're right.
Yeah, you're about to tell me some stuff that I didn't.
But no, that's still in 32, isn't it?
No, the last thing in 32 is her anointing Wu-In. And then it stops.
All right, well, my bad.
That's why I was bullshitting, because we had time left. And we were done.
I'm so sorry. I gave you a little bit of a spoiler, but just like so you know, it will basically kill her. Yes, spoilers. The whole thing with Wu-In and the way that the lady takes advantage of him is so exactly like what's happening to Tarisai too. The fact that they have both been totally deprived of the kind of affection that they would normally get from a parent, and she's like capitalizing on that. But the weird thing is, like, she knows she's capitalizing on it with Wu-In because she knows the situation. But with Tarisai, she's like arguing with her about the fact that she was actually happy as a child. Like, she would know better than Tarisai whether her childhood was good or not. It's like she doesn't want to admit to herself what kind of neglect Tarisai has felt.
Right.
Because she thinks, like, I did everything I could to give you the materials that you needed to be safe and comfortable. And it's just an interesting thing to see how the effect on Tarisai is so similar. Like, Wu-In is like at her mercy in a lot of ways, you know. She has basically lied to him this whole time and used him, and he was just going to give her a cut on the face as like a reprimand and then probably just move on, which in my opinion is not enough, just for the record. I think he would have stayed in her service. I don't know if he would have how aware or even what his options are. You know, he is anointed and connected to her. You know, I don't know exactly what the logistics are of like saying, I don't want to be in your service anymore. Like, does he even have that option? So maybe like this sort of public sort of, I'm going to scar your face because that's all I can do. You know what I mean? Which is actually a good question. Is it's not all he could do. But he wasn't angry enough at her to actually intend to kill her. That shit was just an accident, you know? Exactly. So he made a choice to stay in her employ, for lack of a better word. You know? But again, trauma bonding is a real fucking thing. And it's one thing to have spent 20 years thinking someone is one way, and then you get like a rush of information and you realize you've been betrayed, but then it doesn't always necessarily change your feelings, you know? Like, you want to suddenly hate this person and not have any sense of loyalty or need them or want them, you know, you want it all to be dead immediately. But it doesn't, our emotions don't work like that. The way we love doesn't work like that, you know? And I think it's a really interesting point that you bring up, that the lady has, I bet there are others. I mean, this Kathleen, you know, we didn't really hear a lot from Kathleen. Maybe she shows up later too, but I'd be really interested in how the lady went about collecting her counsel. You know, we really just got details on Wu-In, but I'm really, really curious now.
who else did she lie to? Did she lie to anybody else? Was Wu-Win the only one that needed to be taken advantage of in this way because of his access to the cave that she needs, and her trying to get this army, right?
Yeah,
and him being from such a vulnerable population, the people from Songland, he represented like a really unique opportunity for the lady.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she necessarily needed to lie to other people. Maybe she was more upfront and truthful with the rest of her council. But what we've seen of her, I don't know, y'all.
Yeah, it feels unlikely.
I don't know.
Her MO doesn't seem to be open, fair, and honesty.
It does, and it's a real bummer too, because like she has a legitimate claim.
Yes.
I think she could have brought people to her side if she had been more transparent, if she had been more honest about like what she was, who she was, what she was entitled to, what she had been denied. You know what I mean? But
I don't know. Like, I feel like she tried that and she's been just dodging getting killed over and over again.
Yeah. That's true.
She was painted as a flat out traitor, and disproving that, people have to like give you a chance.
Yeah, well, but she was able to bring people to her side, and they knew she was I guess wanted, was considered a traitor. They obviously believed her version of events.
Sure.
I just wish, I'm very curious, like if her versions of events had been a little bit more based in truth.
Yeah, and we haven't met the other people, but we know at least Win is a misfit on a massive scale. So like what she's able to get a misfit to listen to, because they are also misunderstood and cast aside, is going to be really different than what she can get the average citizen to listen to when they've been told there's one Raybearer. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and that's why I'm so curious about these other council members that she had, who we've literally only met Kathleen and Wu-Win, right? I know she didn't have. I'm pretty sure Tarisai said her mother didn't have a full 11.
No, she didn't. I think it's mentioned that she's got like 7, maybe
7 feels about right.
Yeah,
because when she's looking at the mask and she counts the stripes, I think it comes up, but I can't remember how many there were. But we know that there are council members of the ladies out there that we have not seen and met and talked to yet, and I have questions. Lots of questions. Yeah. Firstly, where y'all at though?
Where are y'all at?
Where they at though?
And what are they going to do when they find out the lady is dead at Wu-Win's hand? Because it was a fucking accident, but like,
yeah,
still.
I mean, it's the same question circling back to the Emperor. Like, Emperor dead at Thaddeus' hand. Like, what is the what happens next? Other than just a proclamation that Dio is now the Emperor, and that the Emperor has gone to the village and won't be back anytime soon, which is a weird fucking way to say somebody is dead.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
Fine. Dead is too harsh.
Yeah.
We've got to be like, he went on a little trip.
Yeah. It's like
a
you
little
can't
farm upstate.
You can't admit that they died, right? It does something to the mystique, right? So you have to just be like, oh, he's gone and he won't be back for a while, because to admit that he just died is like, oh, well, how much of a guy could he have been? Exactly. That's real regular shit for an emperor to be doing, just dying. I mean, hell, I'ma die. Does that mean I can be emperor? You know
I feel like
mean?
though, if you're trying to cloak it in mystique while his broken body is oozing blood on the fucking sidewalk outside the tower, it's not really gonna.
That's the other thing too. That was so public.
Yeah,
like all those people saw him hit the pavement, and then the announcement is, he won't be back for a while. Nah, he's not gonna be back at all. Like, we all saw it. I can't wait to get the rest of this, like what was happening off page while we were in Songland. What the fuck was going on at the palace? I can't wait.
All right. Well, I am going to wrap up and say hi to new patrons next week, because I am late to take care of the puppies who are going to be wondering where I am.
All right.
But I am really excited about reaching the end of this book and starting the next book. I really enjoy some certain parts of the next book a whole lot. I'm excited for you to get to.
Oh, good.
And I want to reiterate to folks, because a lot of people were confused about how we're planning to cover things, but we're going to do the second book and then we're going to cover Ted Lasso. And Rashawn is going to be the spoiled one, so she's watching Ted Lasso ahead. I am not watching it. Managed to totally avoid any spoilers thus far.
Good.
I'm not really in any like groups that are heavy on that discourse, so
good.
I'm hoping that
be mindful.
Yeah. And after Ted Lasso, I had been going to do Cradle, canceled that. Now we are going to do The Hunger Games, which I had dismissed as an option a little while ago, but I recently sort of circled back around to it and was like, well, let me see. And I started re-listening to the first audiobook, which is done by Tatiana Maslany, who is Orphan Black. And
so good.
She is unbelievable with this audiobook.
So she's so fucking good.
Her casting as Katniss would have been really good. I think that Jennifer Lawrence was really miscast. They cast all of the like ancillary characters excellently, but Jennifer Lawrence and what's his face as Gale are really mistakes in my opinion. But the book,
I don't even know who that other name was you just mentioned.
Gale?
Yeah, I don't know what.
So I'll mention this now. Rashawn watched like the first 20 minutes, 15 minutes of the first movie.
I can tell you exactly how long it lasted.
Okay.
It was more than 15 minutes, but I never made it off the train.
Right.
They're on a train with Woody Harrelson.
And it was boring.
Like, they're headed to a big city or something. Mm-hmm. And it's Woody Harrelson being weird and drunk and unpleasant. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it was taking too long. And people were like, the hair was weird, but there was a lot happening, and I just didn't understand it. And I have tried to watch that movie like 5 times. I have never made it past the train. I don't know where the train is going. Don't know what happens when they get there. I love
that you have like a little bit of something, but not.
No.
That'll make this really interesting because the book is so dependent on Katniss's internal monologue that I really just don't think that it would work as a movie unless you had that monologue as an voiceover. And they didn't do that. And so a lot of the movie is kind of like overplayed visual, like on people's faces in a way that it wouldn't make sense because you're giving things away, or it's underplayed to the point that it's actually just boring to watch. And I was so excited for the first movie and I was so bored. And my partner who came with me, Jared, he fucking fell asleep in the theater. Granted, he was drunk.
Well,
but nevertheless. So yeah, I started listening to it, and you guys, this book has beat the shit out of me. I was not ready for the difference in the way everything hits. Everything. All of the allegory, all of the commentary, all of these individual little moments that were meaningless to me when I read it the first time because I was too young to really get what was being said, and too young to like know some of our own history and put 2 and 2 together about what comparisons she's making. So now rereading it, I'm just blown away. And I finished the 3rd book yesterday and
already?
I just had to take a minute. Yeah.
I want to go on record too.
Through them.
When Natasha brought it up, the first thing I said was, what's that author doing?
Yes.
What's she been up to?
It's so funny because I went and looked into it. The only thing that I found was that she was sharing some Black Lives Matter links and videos and stuff. And then there were a bunch of tweets that literally said, can we just all applaud Suzanne Collins, who wrote a brilliant fucking trilogy and then bounced and was never fucking heard from again? Can we just stand a queen who knows how to keep her fucking mouth shut? Like, it was just one tweet after another of people specifically addressing how she has laid low and not ruined things for herself. So, yeah.
I hope that trend continues.
Same, especially because since the movies have dropped on Netflix, it's been in the discourse all of a sudden.
Oh.
And that wasn't why I started rereading it, but it's super weird because my reread has coincided with an influx of Hunger Games memes on my feed, which feels really weird because this is also what kind of happened when I started covering Twilight. And all of a sudden, all these Twilight memes started showing up.
That's what happened when I started rewatching King of the Hill. I have so much King of the Hill content now. It's
got to be like tailored somehow. They know, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
They're listening right now. Get it? All right, on that note.
Anyway, so yeah, look forward to that. I'm excited to talk to Rashawn about it. It's gonna be heavy, but in a way that I feel like isn't going to break us. Fingers crossed. And I'm really excited for the next of these 2 books. So thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us in the chat. We love you very much.
We do.
Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Capitalism is a disease.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.